The final question that came up a few times over the course of the month, and I think this was driven by some articles that I did notice in financial media, was around whether markets are air quotes expensive. So to answer that question is a yes. If you look back through time and you look at the average valuation of the S&P 500, for instance, against its average earnings multiple over the last 30, 40, or 50 years, then yes, today's market valuations appear to be expensive. That's a fact. However, facts have to appear in context. I think it's very important to understand the context about how this works. Index construction is not static. The stocks are the biggest index weights in today's indexes were not the same stocks that were the biggest weights 20 or 30 years ago. And also, it's important to note that the stocks that are the biggest index weights today, which is largely US large cap technology, are growing their earnings at a rate that is much, much higher than the stocks that dominated indexes in decades past. So it's natural, of course, if you have a higher rate of earnings growth, that the multiple would be higher on these stocks. So really a statement like that might be true in fact, but really what you're talking about is you're comparing apples to oranges. And I'm going to emphasize how important this is, especially when you start to take a look at higher earnings growth stocks, typically in the technology sector. Because if you look back to May of 2021, you can see that the S&P 500 was actually trading at 33 times earnings, which is substantially higher than we are today. Now, if we go forward in time, we see that we're about 26 times earnings. However, in the meantime, the stock market did not go down when the earnings multiple compressed from 33 to 19. It actually went up 38%. And that's because earnings growth was actually faster, and so it allowed the market to rise despite the fact that the multiples compressed. So a story like this is interesting, it's eye-catching. I mean, it is based in fact, so we want to give it the devil is due in that case. But I think you have to always take a look at the broader context when you're looking at factoids like that, because you have to understand the full story to make sure that you're not jumping to a conclusion that might not otherwise be warranted.